So starting off the part way in the second turn. The first thing we do is we're at the movement because we already did the build and service ship step this time. We dropped things down. So that counter came off, and this goes back up to here because it's so far out. This flings down. It's going to be an orbiter. It doesn't actually have to move, I don't think. Let me check that. Well, it does. It's just in the flyby box, and it'll have to move to get to Saturn. It's going to have to do some, what I guess is local maneuvering, and that could be a place for an engine failure. Otherwise, it would mean, rovers can land without any difficulty, all kind of stuff like that. But here's the thing, the rover isn't really that much harder to land than getting an orbiter into play, which feels a little weird to me. Here everything's been moved, and here we've got a drop to a flyby. Okay, now we go back to the initiative movement, and this is going to be, there's a lot of mechanical stuff in that. I'll try to just report deaths or failures. Well, I kind of screwed up and threw this orbiter and making a roll for that because that's pretty much pre-planned. But these are supposed to go in reverse initiative order, which we're doing. South America comes first. I guess the interesting thing here is we're doing the launch. And I got to remember where I was going to send it. I'm not sending it to Uranus. I'm actually sending it to the asteroid belt because there are South American... I thought there was a South American flyby out there. Oh, there's one down here. Yeah. Okay. Already. So I want to get this here. So what is the distance requirement? Well, the distance requirement is 3. I have no modifiers. -1 because of this. So I get it out to here. However, I do have to make a base engine check. Every time you do a movement, you got to make one. 52, we're fine. This sucker, though, is now gone. We did a launch before, but I don't think it was out into deep space. I had a bad roll. And unfortunately, this is my supply ship going up to go build a base that just got destroyed. That's really horrible, especially for the people on board. That just died. Now, there's always a consolation prize, and this is a big expense. So I actually get 3 engineering chits, I think, for a failure of this nature. Let me see. For each CV cost to engine failure, get 3 for a CV2 and 5 for a CV3. But, although I get a lot of engineering tech, that's not something I can use until the end of the decade. And, in a sense, this kind of thing could sometimes halt the whole program or something. And that doesn't really get revealed here. It's just the expense, really. Okay, but that leads me with a problem. I've got this that I don't know what to do with. It's useless without the base. I'm going to send it back down to Earth, and that has to make a check too. Re-entry, and it's fine. At least I'll be able to recoup that at the end of the turn. The Russian supplies also came close to being destroyed, but we make it up here, and now all this shit is sitting up here. So that, when I said the end of the turn, I actually mean the beginning of next turn, for what that's worth. But now all this shit is up here at Mir, and we'll be able to repair this or resupply one ship and start building stuff at this base. Getting a base is a really valuable thing. The idea that there's not really a collaborative base is a little problematic. Although, maybe you need an alliance or whatever for that to happen. And these got bumped. I think that's... Oh, I wanted to point this out. So, this is starting to get to be a mess. Everybody's interested in the shared result here. And so a lot of people did the same thing, threw a flyby there. The Japanese threw, they have an orbiter, which I think started the game there. So that's actually their kind of bonus, being able to race for that a little faster. But we'll see. The Americans, in addition to sending this thing way out to Neptune that they planned, we also have to deal with this, which is going to have to go back to Earth. It's at a distance of 1.9 or whatever, but here's the thing. It can't be less than a 1. However, I do have to make, again, an engine check on that. As with every movement except for the pre-planned long-term flight. So long-distance flights are kind of cool because you can get quite far, off of one engine check. It's all sort of pre-plotted stuff. Even though there may be, like if you're used to High Frontier, there may be times when you have to use some boosters or something, or else you're just lost. That's all factored in that one calculation. So you can make quite long jumps in this without having to worry about too much, which is kind of cool, to tell you the truth. I feel like so much of High Frontier is spent on really kind of piddly little stuff. It gives you more of the narrative, though. There's no question about that. And sometimes that piddly little stuff ends up, hey, it costs you some fuel or something, and then you can make real decisions to change things. But here, I kind of like the flavor. I kind of like the fact that it abstracts away some of that stuff. It's not to say that I don't like High Frontier still. They're different games. Someone was asking about, hey, what about the different, are there other games? And Leaving Earth came to mind. I didn't touch that. That was €2 for me. This one I was afraid would be €2 for me. I already have Space Core, right? I looked at that. That's Euro enough for me, So this is more, this is closer to my sweet spot than. I just don't want to keep investing in things that don't give me a lot of story, right? One other game that I wanted to think about a little bit in conjunction to this was Battlefleet Mars. Now, Battlefleet Mars has the one interesting thing that neither this nor High Frontier nor certainly any of the purely Euro type ones have, which these all the modern games have. The planets are in kind of a fixed location. Okay, the idea that this is the alignment over decades is bullshit. And the same thing happens with the fixed pattern for High Frontier. The truth of the matter is that distances are changing consistently, and yes, I'll accept there's a once a year or twice a year window or something like that. That's a good launch. But the amount of time spent between planets does change significantly as years go by. Now, in the close inner solar system area, year-long terms, that's probably fine and you're abstracting enough. High Frontier then added there's a word for this, but the planets that are beyond the asteroid zone. And with those, certainly, even for the window of a shot from Earth, it differs. But it is possible over the scale of that game for planets to move significantly in their positions relative to each other around the solar system. The distances can become much, much greater. The time between planets can become much, much greater. This is not represented here at all, which I'm okay with in this. It feels light enough, abstract enough. In High Frontier, it pisses the hell out of me that doesn't happen. Battlefleet Mars is the one game that I know of that keeps track of where the different planets are as you're moving. It's not an exploration game, though, at all. It's it's more of a straight combat game. But it's really cool because you get to see the different planets moving around on this hex map. And of course, it's a standard hex map, so a little less appealing than this kind of thing, and it's got a different flavor. Another game that I wanted to bring up, just avoiding doing this all in the review section because I'm sure I'll forget it then, is Triplanetary. Now, with Triplanetary, the scale of most of the games is fairly short. So it kind of makes sense to say, yeah, their planets are in fixed position for this. In fact, Battlefleet Mars, the scale is kind of short compared to these other games. So the planets don't move very much. But in Triplanetary, you end up using the gravity wells of the planets in a very explicit way. They add to your vectors for the vector movement that it uses. So does the Traveler combat system. It is not represented here except with maybe a slingshot around the sun for the flybys. It is represented in High Frontier, but again, it's this fixed location type thing that, you know, the way the map is drawn doesn't actually work. And then, you know, again, in Triplanetary, because the planets are essentially non-moving in the time scale of most of the scenarios. There's one exception to that. There's this asteroid mining scenario, which kind of doesn't make sense because, you know, ship movement, I don't know. If you assume mining is very rapid, it's not terrible because turns are like a month long or whatever in it, which might be fitting anyway. Okay. Where the hell am I? Other than running my mouth to no end. I think we finished the movement phase, and there's not going to be any combat still. I don't have to look. I know I haven't bought any military units, which means we're back to exploration. Or we've pushed through the first 3 explorers. I don't know if the Russians had anything they explored with it. Yeah, they had this. There have been some successes, but no new world cards turned over, no new depletions. There have also been 3 malfunctions. Mercury is empty now, there's less telescopes here. And it's just part of it. The equipment, you know, fails. And you got to send it back out if you want to keep creating points off of it. So it's one of the reasons why it's kind of safe to have too many things out there early in the decade. Step in with Asia because a couple interesting things have happened. First of all, their little flyboy here, who was looking at Europa, got a successful exploration getting some biology, but it's destroyed. And that's kind of a problem because I was planning on using, you know, this is a backup, but I was kind of hoping to get a couple shots on Europa. Only got 1, not very good. That sucks, but I got an extra, I got 2 chits out of it, so it's not that horrible. Over here, the crew has just discovered a depletion, and of course, this is in the Earth orbit box. I get a biology marker, great. I get the depletion marker there. I could draw a world card. I don't know if the rules I don't think are specific about this. All it would do is burn one. I don't see any point to take that action. There's no world that will accept this as an exploration that's successful. Mainly what we're doing here is testing out, you know, life in space is really what I think this is meant to represent. It's not discovering, it could be discovering stuff about the biology of Earth by space satellites and such not, but there's so many satellites out there telling you what's going on in Earth. It's more telling you about what happens to humans there. I'll do this orbiter while, I already had this one out. But I do get the other results of a depletion. So I can search for life. Well, there's life on Earth. But I also get a politics marker for it, as I would normally do. if my fingers can find it. And then I just get this here. Let's do the other one just so you get to see me roll some dice. Orbiter, hitting this for 6. And do we have radiation here? I thought we had radiation on Venus for some reason. I'm always thinking that. We got the atmosphere. Okay, 34 is safe without the radiation. That gives me nothing. The flyby over here survives, but an 8 was successful actually because Titan is such a high value. Let me get a depletion marker out there. We drew our world card. It's icy, which fits what we've got here. I'm going to actually play this one because it gives me a +5 search for life. So I have a 14% chance of finding signs of life on, and 20 doesn't quite do it. On with the Japanese, they actually failed with their telescope, but didn't get damaged. And then we go down to their, I usually do the telescopes after I do everything else, but there's no real reason for that. For here, though, I have something interesting. So first of all, I'm going to do a flyby of Mercury. I'm not going to worry about the sun. Engineering's just as good as physics as far as I'm concerned at this point, I think. I mean, I don't know. So I've got a 9 basis, but I'm dealing in a radiation zone, which is part of the problem. 9 basis, 93, that's going to survive the radiation zone. A 9 means that I get a draw. And Japan might get 2 depletions if they're real lucky. Nope. Okay, but now why did I zoom in on here? Because that flyby has to go somewhere now. This way. Japan is interested in Vesta. I've got something launched for Vesta up here. I'm just going to move a distance of 1, 2, and 1, -2 and -1, the absolute difference, and I'm going to put it here. I can't immediately search there. Now, what I'm probably not going to do is do a flyby of Earth. Yes, I can search against this, but the odds are pretty low right now, so why bother? I'm done with the exploration for South America. They were the last one. So they did flyby here. I don't remember if it even succeeded on Europa. The reason for Europa, the higher chance of life. Hey, why the hell not, you know? For most of them, they're kind of like, I like physics better than biology, but biology comes with a higher chance of life. There's value to that, so why the hell not? But that brought me to this one, where I don't want to do the flyby because I have a probe on board, and I'll be risking the probe for no advantage from the probe. And this is kind of the problem. I have to wait till I get to the flyby box to hit the probe. I sent probes out with most of these flybys, knowing that, you know, it's not like I wasn't thinking about that. It's just, you know, they're almost all looking at something further on that they're actually more interested in, that they want to make other checks for. So waiting a couple turns to get the high impact one on this seems worthwhile. I might be able to actually get 2 different missions, maybe more, off of one little robotic explorer. And let's see. The rover died on Mars. It found some stuff, not a depletion, but, you know, it found things. Okay. I think that's done with the exploration, which will shoot me over to the trading base. Still no trade. This base exists, but it doesn't have a trade marker, so nobody can trade with it. But we might have some building. In fact, we know we're going to have some building. I just want to look to see, has anybody got anything else up in the atmosphere? No. There's one base that can be built, so let's just deal with it. Okay, at Mir. The base is already built. I'm allowed to expand it once. What did I decide I wanted to expand it to? I wanted to expand it to a small supply station. So I have to pay the costs for that. And that's going to give me 1 iron. Let's find it. 1 iron and 1 fuel. So we will spend those from the station. And we put this marker on the station now. Now, on next turn, I have the points to unreserve one of my two ships, the one that's not the cargo ship, or the one that's not primarily a cargo ship. And then, because I have this, I can go off and try to build another base off here, elsewhere. In addition, while that's off trying to tire itself out again, this thing can keep flying back and forth from Earth, hauling goods. Now, I can haul goods without this thing, but it's more expensive, right? This thing is picked up by this, which costs 3, but it carries 6 goods. This on its own would only carry 2 goods. So, although I have to kind of pace it, because next turn the movement is going to be back down to Earth. The turn after that, the movement's going to be back up using the booster. I'm not sure that I can't do both. The rules for movement, if I want to accelerate it, the rules for movement, I think kind of allow it. Okay, planetary system moves. You can combine multiple moves. Ships can move multiple times. However, they must stop if they land on a world. Yeah, okay, so that ends it. Or stack with a base. And the other one is load and unload resources. So pretty much, yeah, I have to, it's going to be every other turn. Since I could actually do a liftoff with a Type 3, but that would cost me 4. This only cost me, that would cost me 4, and it would cost me 4 each time I deliver 3 resources up there. This only costs me 3, and I'll be pulling 6 resources up. So, yeah, obviously cheaper. I think we've just finished another year. And you can see it's going to start moving really a lot faster as I go into less details about all the die rolls and all that kind of crap. Once we get to the economic phase or combat or something exciting like that, we'll zoom in and take a closer look again. At the South Americans, I think I kind of fucked up by putting the probe on the flyby because now I want to throw an orbiter around Uranus. I might be able to discard it by the rules, I don't know, but I paid for it, so I'll leave it there. And there is, a victory point space that I want to do. But I think I want to take another shot. I still have a fair amount of money. I'm not, I have no crewed vehicles or anything like that to work with. So let's launch something up Uranus. It's in an interesting position. They have a reserve ship. Everybody's been kind of, hey, I'll launch another ship. It's just hard not to. Even if you've kind of planned for a flyby to hit, in this case, for Asia, they're going for Europa. Well, they've got a flyby here to go for this and something for Europa. Yeah, let's build a rover and send it to Europa as well. Again, the same kind of thing. I should have sent the probe there. Although rovers are good, so the extra cost is less, but 4 rovers not that great. But over here with China, they've got a reserved ship here. I buy a supply and a fuel, and I regenerate it. And now we've got to launch it. Well, it can't go anywhere but Earth. So even if it was possible, I wouldn't have to buy anything else. So I'm going to spend 3 more fuel to send that out into space. I want to spend, I'm sorry, I said fuel before. I mean money, but I'm getting a fuel and a supply. There's a fuel and there's a supply. And I unreserve this guy, so he's available. Now he actually has materials he could go build a base with, conceivably over here. What do I need for a base? Well, I don't remember. Here's the problem. I need 3 to build in either of those. So I'm not going to have the materials on board, so I'll just keep going with whatever my plan was, a research station, I believe, because I can't actually produce any goods in space. After the mechanical act of movement, basically most of your, after the mechanical act of dropping a level in your distance from where your destination is, There's not, in general, most of the places you're going to be moving, at least at this point in the game, you're going to be moving out of the flyby box to somewhere else. So, you know, we shoot down here. The U.S. doesn't have anything here. They're not there yet. We have a reserved ship here, which has to make it back to Earth. That's the only place that I can do things. Now, I could have built a base, but whatever. And, of course, the re-entry requires a quick roll, and that is not a good roll. So I get a whole bunch of engineering plans, 3 of them, for that failure. None of which are shown to anyone else, but definitely wasn't worthwhile. I've moved on to the Russian movement. The Kuiper is kind of, or Kuiper or whatever, is kind of interesting. It can only build bases in Earth orbit, I believe. I don't think there's anywhere where there's a 2-point base you can build. You can see these guys take a lot of materials to build the base. As you go further and further out, you need heavier and heavier ships. And they can't even coordinate. All the materials have to come from one ship, and that ship has to have exploration. So I can't work between that and this to build up more bases. So it's kind of a one-use ship to build that space station there, if that's what you want to use the resource capacity for. I don't know if it mattered or not, but I sure the hell didn't remember the robust cruise bonus for them. Again, the problem with all those disparate little pieces of information that are player-oriented. I hate this kind of stuff. I really do. And it frustrates me so much to be not able to remember it. Things aren't going too well. The North Americans lost their telescope. That leaves them a couple of these long-distance ventures. But they lost their CV, so... The Russians lost a flyby trying to do an exploration. They probably shouldn't have been in Saturn from the 3 box. They wanted to get, a new chit early so you can, yeah, that didn't work. Here I did a success. Got a 5 bio. Did not get destroyed with a 00. That's 100. But I have a spectrometer on this, which I didn't notice. I drew one and I was like, I don't know if I want that. But I could take either of these. This one gets me an exploration of +3 with the spectrometer. So that's good. I want that. That's not a 3 on the other side. I'm so used to the number counters from games like Terrible Swift Sword that, and all of the, sort of things that have come after it. Get a politics marker. I can't remember. Oh, I get to search for life. That's pretty cool. There was no life bonus on the other one, but a 12% chance. That's pretty cool. And it looks like I win. Okay, so that does some new things. I have to find signs of life, which are somewhere. Here they are. Okay. That's going to add to, I think that's research. So it would have a 5 biology research if I set up a base on Mars. I've gained some other things though. I got my politics, okay. Finding life earns you the signs of life and the existing life, which can't be researched. So I gotta find the Russian ship. I did not maintain the same framework that I had. So I gain this. That gives me Earth production of +2 biology in tech points from now on, which is kind of cool. Now, other people can buy that for 10. Well, -3 because somebody has it. But they can also find it. This gives me more, though. It also gives me 2 biology tech, a victory marker, and a politics marker. So I get a second politics marker. and these have, this is ×2, not ×3. Sometimes hard for me to read. The 2 biology, pull, let me make sure I got my 5 there, yeah. Otherwise I've covered it up. Okay, I'm finding all kinds of stuff. What was the other? A victory point marker. This is the first one that's shown up in the game. And what else? Is that it? Yep. Okay. Orbital telescopes have worked pretty well so far. At least this turn, not previously. Been breaking them and stuff, but ended up succeeding twice. Once in the deep space that got a depletion and didn't find any life, but that's okay. And then another shot here that just got me some points. Why am I not still doing deep space? Yeah, because this goes down from 5 to 4. So, while I don't particularly want to reveal these because I'm so far behind in terms of making it out there and building bases, that's pretty minor compared to, 1/9 of well, I don't know what the difference is, but anyway, close to a 10% difference in finding it. They're really pissed that they put their orbiter here. I don't know. I don't think it started surrounding Saturn. I think it was on its way, and I didn't really notice that I had this as my bonus. Of course, I got another shot with a flyby going by, but I went for this, and well, at least I didn't break. I got a high enough number I didn't break. No, radiation is Jupiter, not Saturn. But my number was an 8, not 2 like it is here, which would have succeeded if I was actually around the planetoids that I'm looking for. For whatever reason, Japan is sitting with a rover here in Europa and a probe. I got a probe on this orbiter here that's going to Vesta where I want it. This must have been a starting thing. But that gives me a 16 base if I fire that probe off, which means I'm going to get 1 success. I actually get 2 biology successes, and I survive. Those 2 biology successes, if this was a CV, I could add them up. But as it stands, I just get these. The probe is now gone, but it means I can launch something with the probe in it again. Japan actually had a pretty good turn. They did successful searches down here and with their telescope. None of them revealing a depletion. But, the chance of a success isn't all that great for the most part. So it's kind of cool when you get that much coming. On the other hand, had kind of a mixed turn. I took some chances and did a couple flybys that I think they were both flybys. One might have been an orbiter, I don't know. That failed to survive. They failed their mechanical test, but they brought back good information. Some biology information, some physics up here at Pluto, but a lot of information on how not to screw up like that again. 2 big mechanical point totals. That should be the end of the exploration. At which point we go, again, we skipped combat, to building the bases. And what can we do with this? Well, I have stuff that I could fix a reserved Russian ship, but my ship's not broken yet. This should have gone home. Let me cheat a little bit and move that thing. Engine could have broken completely, yeah. That would give me like 3 engineering. Let me look at costs and see, because I feel like I had something intended there, like a research. Yeah, I was going to buy me a small research station along with the supply station. Okay. And now, these numbers here are how many hits they can take. So that's kind of cool. And this is going to allow me to produce tech in space, which is all I'm allowed to produce. I think that's the only base out there. So I think we're done with another turn. And you can see, you know, getting kind of the flavor of it moving. I mean, the biggest thing that speeds it up is I'm not on camera doing everything. But I'm also beginning to get more of the flavor, getting more used to things, and moving along a little faster. A lot faster, actually. But because honestly, although I'm not on camera a whole lot, I'm probably on camera about as much as I'm playing. But when I'm playing on camera, somehow it just slows everything down even more. So far, most of the players have not built much in the way of ships. We had Africa is launching something new, but others are kind of like, I got some decent money here. The Russians are sending a big package up to Mir to create a larger research station. The reason for that is they'll get them a resupply points for this thing if it needs it. I could have sent settlements up there to start working. I gotta have at least some settlement to allow trade. But right now, the cost for settlements is very high. It's 5 of my 6 that I can haul up. That means I wouldn't be able to send a resupply up as well. And as you can see, I'm kind of low on cash. So I'm probably not going to have a settlement for next turn. I'm not going to get a trade in the next decade. Okay. But I'll get some research, which will be helpful. For the US, I start thinking, geez, I don't have a crewed vehicle anymore. I don't have a whole lot of cash. What can I do? What I'd like to do is set up a base, say, in Mars, where it's only 4 to build a base. It's not that expensive. And there are advantages already there, right? Look, there's production already set up here that would be pretty decent. Mars looks very appealing right now. But there are problems. This can't carry enough to get me to Mars. That's the main problem. So I would need a CV3 at least to get the materials to build a base on Mars. Well, a CV3 is this. That's going to cost me 25 engineering points. I looked at my engineering points and I have like 8. I don't think I'm going to get 25. Yes, I produced some more. I think this is my production between, so I'm going to get 3 more. In 2060 it goes up, because there's a plus here. So, you know, I'm going to get some more. I'm not that close to the end. I might get another 8, but I'm not going to be at 23 unless I really focus heavily on getting engineering tech. That might mean it's worth trying to set up a base on, say, the moon first. Well, to get to the moon, I'm going to need a 3-point baser. Now, I don't have the capability to build a lot of bases. And now this is where I start looking at all this shit to see what's up. First of all, my launch vehicles may not be destroyed. So that's kind of interesting. That means I could keep sending materials up to the moon without, you know. So a base is kind of appealing to me. So can I get this thing into play? Well, this thing costs me 8. And launching it'll put me to 11. I only have 10. Well, that sucks. And so I'm not sure I even want to do the bonus of having my crewed vehicle flying around. What other options do I have? Well, I have a rover. That's kind of cheap. That's still 5. What's my cheap CVs? Here, the Orion style. Wow, they're expensive. They're expensive at 9. So, you know, maybe I want to keep that extra money for the telescopes and whatnot, because it looks pretty clear I am not going to be able to do anything too exciting. Now, what did I send out that's causing me problems? I sent this thing way out there. And, well, this one was there before. I sent this thing way out here, which is important because that's my victory point space. That's going to be discovered. I'm going to start being able to search for that in 7 rounds. This is round 3, so I got room to launch something else. Okay, what about the Orion? Resending the Orion out. 7, 8, 9. I can't afford it. So I just don't have the bucks to send that out. Is there something I want to send out instead? I could send the Lowell out. Are there good engineering numbers out here? Because that's really what I'm aiming at. 6. That's not great. I just don't have a lot of points on my side. But I could get physics points. What'll physics points get me? That I don't care about. That's just speed. Combat, don't care about that right away. Radiation shielding, yeah. And trade routes, which requires production, which requires bases. So physics doesn't look like it's going to get me a whole hell of a lot right off the bat. Phew. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe the best thing I can do is... Oh, I have another 2-point telescope. Yeah, let's launch my telescope if it's not too expensive. It's 3, 4, 5. And that way I can launch another telescope later. Losing my manned explorer, which is a pretty unlikely thing to do, is painful as hell. What am I going to get off biology, maybe? Better crew exploration, which is one of the problems, is I've got this +1 that I probably forgot about. And artificial gravity reduces my base recall rate, which is great for the cruise. Okay. Well, we'll do what we're doing. With no movement failures, low chances of that. The Chinese actually took a chance through this over here because they're regretting having missed a draw last time. So, you know, it's not that hard to move something over. We've got the South Americans not particularly interested in this, but I've got somebody heading off to Uranus, so yeah, the joke grows old, right? I'm 5. But Titan's very interesting in terms of finding life, so it seems like a good place to stow something for now. We got a lot of these flybys, which are going to come with their one shot at this. Since that shot is pretty good, the Japanese decided to throw their orbiter around Vesta. They can always move it, so that's not that big a deal. What else is going on? Nothing too exciting. Another flyby here. I think I got all the launches up and a couple of ships that the crew needs a rest have come back. So on to exploration. Nothing too exciting on the searches going so far. Let's see. We did the U.S., who broke their telescope but found some engineering tech. Double engineering. Basically, I decided I want to see if I can get close to that 23 because I want to be able to push out so that I can, you know, colonize somewhere better than the moon. Although I have the capacity to do the moon, I just don't have the points right now. So, but anyway. Russians, I believe, had some failures. Russian ship. Yeah. But going to the EU, they made a roll. I don't know if I caught this. I hope I did. They made a roll with their flyby and end up getting the Hygeia counter. They got this 5. They also got a 2. They're using their probe. And let's see what we get. They pulled a world card that they decided to discard because they can't really take advantage of stuff. They don't have the CV capabilities yet, and they don't have the lead on that. Search for Life, I think they attempted and failed. And they'll get a politics marker, of course. It's their second one, the 1s and 2s. By the way, I failed on this too with the astronomies. I might remember this turn because it's coming right up. It's the next thing I do, basically. But having gotten this mission, well, I have to look up to see, hey, what does it mean that I got a mission? Exactly. Because I can't remember. It's been a while since I've succeeded in one, if I have. The big thing is I took away everyone else's mission. And that's the reason why Japan isn't there. Because they go so late in the turn, somebody is likely to have that mission. While that world's not terrible, still. Okay, so let's see what happens. This is unfortunately buried over here somewhere. Markers. Let's keep looking. We'll sit down because this is where the game gets tough, right? Okay. So we succeeded. We get an additional politics marker. Let's see what else we get. We get 1 billion per turn. Okay. And if we turn it in, I think we get a victory point, but it's with 4. So we get an additional politics marker. Let's get a 2 here. Damned if I know what to do with those. I know they can be turned into money or tech and stuff, as well as moving the diplomacy markers around, which might be of value. The problem is whatever value you get out of it, you kind of give to the other person if it's not warfare. So I have this. Somebody else has a mission, don't they? No, that's the first one in this game. Cool. Okay, and one thing that does is it means a new mission is revealed. Venus. Venus is only worth 2 points. Somebody has already found stuff in Venus, but they don't get it retroactively. And now I do these telescopes, and hopefully I remember the extra die for space telescope exploration. Well, I want to look at my number of engineering points and see where I'm going to go, so I'm not going to do this all on camera. It's getting to the point in the game where I don't feel like I should just go for the most tech I can get. I should be kind of beginning to target that tech to see, can I make it to some kind of reasonable goal instead of just, can I get bonuses? Especially with the telescopes, which can't get me missions, They can do depletions, but the thing is certainly interesting. Crewed vehicles is 10 points, and if they're 3 points off for each, which is what China's special ability seems to indicate, everybody's going to get crewed vehicles for 0. Maybe you have to pay 1. I know there's some things that don't allow for a minimum, but yeah, that's basically free. China's Saturn orbiter over here actually just succeeded in its mission as well. Didn't get anything too exciting off that, but again, those mission markers give you some additional income. That's definitely useful, plus their victory points. And, I get to pick another one, and what is that going to be? That's going to be Titan. Well, interesting enough, that's actually where I did my flyby shot. So had I succeeded, I did get some points off of it, but had I succeeded with a depletion, I would have cleared a second mission in the same turn, which is pretty exciting. However, I'm only allowed to keep 1 mission, which is a reason maybe not to turn this one in yet, except for, getting an extra victory point or whatever seems worthwhile. because this looks like it's getting depleted fairly quickly. So, I mean, there's kind of this thing where, like, yeah, what do I want to do? Do I want to go search for that second mission right now? Or do I just want the points for it, you know, because this is the first decade, you know, do I want to wipe out a mission that I could get pretty easily? Well, I might not be able to get it pretty easily because this thing might break by then and I might have to fly it out. So I think it's worth just grabbing, cleaning up the missions. Dan had a very unlucky turn. They found a lot of stuff, a couple physics and a mechanical engineering. However, they broke their telescope and 2 flybys out there. So they're left with, I think, nothing. So good thing I have some cash, you know. Oh no, I have this orbiter on Vesta, and I didn't fire that off. So since this is interesting, don't have to roll a mechanics roll on this. That's a 13. And no, oh, I got a spectrometer. That means I get 2 world cards, I believe. Okay, only 1 pick, and that pick is engineering. You got to be careful. These images aren't always right, and I believe it's the wording that is always right on them. Shit. I didn't look it up completely, and I get some garbage. Okay. So I spent a lot for not a lot in terms of some of them searches this turn. I think for South America, I am going to fling this thing. That only gets me in the 6 box. That's not that great. I thought it was getting me in the 4 box. I'm looking at Saturn there. Yeah, I'll just push it forward into here and just keep moving on. Oh, especially, oh no, Venus is where we want to be now. So the only thing that's going to happen in the base phase is I'm going to turn in, I hope I got the right stuff, a research station up to a richer research station. And yeah, that was worth going down for, but that's going to push us to the next turn. Let me check my time. I think I got time for 1 more year in here. And I'll try to move this along quickly, I guess. Totally against my nature, though, right? I forgot to launch this flyby. I'll keep it and use it now that I know that Venus is up here. I don't feel like trying to unwind and figure out what the hell I was doing, and that'll work fine. And I have plenty of money in case the Venus thing gets cleared that I can send out another mission out. It's one of the difficulties I have is noticing the stuff that's here. I think I do an okay job on the stuff that's on the board, but I have trouble noticing stuff. And I would in an opposed game too. You know, some people say, well, you're focusing on so many different players. How can you possibly get, you know, all of them right? Well, honestly, if you were playing this for a true solo, you have to handle the non-player forces anyhow. Although they're handled sort of on their own by the rules. So they're not like, it's not like you have to identify all these ships and everything. They just sort of take effect during the economic phase, if I recall correctly. Obviously, I'm not worrying too much about it, but even if I was playing in an opposed game, I don't tend to be someone who focuses on all this stuff, who spends the entire game period, you know, trying to make sure that I get everything right. I do that more when I'm playing solo, and you can see the effect of it, but when I'm playing in an opposed situation, I'll probably be bullshitting with somebody next to me, and then, oops, it's my turn. Oh, okay, and now I start looking for this stuff, and it's really kind of the same situation. That's why you don't want to play games with me. New ships. We saw a few people towards the tail end of the activities purchasing ships. Now, these are people who probably aren't going to get their first crack at Venus, so, and especially, hey, Asia's already set up there with their orbiter. So that's one impact. when we got to the middle, though, people stopped doing so. And then China built they re-prepared their crewed vehicle to go back up. For the EU, they built a rover, which is largely intended to hit Europa. We'll see. But, and then for the Russians, they worked on nothing. They have almost no money left. Not enough to send anything up, I don't think. I could send a flyby, that's 4, that's all my money. And my cheaper one would only be 3. By the way, there are replacement counters for these guys who have been cut. I did not put them into play, largely because they look a little different. They've got other problems with them, basically, at least in my mind. So I just didn't replace any of the counters. I figure if they start confusing me, I'll start worrying about them. And then for the North Americans, I did create one because I'm going to get the first legitimate crack at it, and I had exactly enough money to send that thing up. And that's going to push me to the movement phase. Fucking up left and right. I'm going to actually take the money back from the EU and not build what I was going to build. This has nothing to do with anything except I had a rover set up with a probe ready to hit there. And again, it's just a matter of I can't keep track of what I'm doing, which is something that happens to me, right? And that was a total of, let me see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'll keep the $10. There's a good chance that I'll know what I want to do after this turn. You know, if there's any, I'm very likely to draw a counter this turn. Maybe not a depletion, but I'll just put this on hold and say I'll keep the cash as I continue working my way downward. So I've been doing a bunch of exploration, nothing too exciting showing up. I did cheat again, moving the orbiter over here. Did a movement roll, but again, I forgot I'm interested in Titan. So even though I had a flyby going through there, I wanted to increase my chances right away. That's an interesting enough world anyway. Better than where I was sitting over here at minus. But I had a failure, well, a partial failure here, and ended up creating both a bio and an engineering chit at the same time, which cleaned out both these pools. And that means what I do is I start working my way through. Everybody gets their points. So the US is going to get 10 points on biology, and now I have to find the US's position on the track, which is particularly hard right now. And it goes up to 13, and I put these here, and then I do the same for their engineering. I only deal with these, not with the physics. There's plenty of there, but we're going to see all the points that people have accumulated in biology and engineering show up for now. Tell you a whole lot. This is where everybody is after clearing all those chits out, and that replenishes the pool so everybody has a full draw available to them. Otherwise it would happen at the end of the decade, which might happen with the physics one, which hasn't been pooling very well. Although some people have fair collections, nobody's got a huge pile. I think Europe's got the biggest. Russia has none. Our lead here is the Japanese with 23 in engineering, for whatever that's worth, you know. I mean, we don't know what they're going to buy and what they're particularly interested in. And I haven't really been focusing too much on that side of things. It's something that I think you could zone out on before you ever play. But I think it's probably better to, at least for me, to kind of play it by ear, except for the fact that I kind of look and say, you know, bio is kind of unimportant compared to the others. Some of it's cool. The space operation recall rate, that's a big deal. Getting that lower, for example, with your CVs. But here's the thing. So strangely, this has been confusing me all along. All the ships have a reserved side to them. Not all the ships can ever become that way. I'm not quite sure what that's about, or maybe I'm missing something or forgot something. But it's been troubling me for a while. Anyway, What that means is, now that we've actually finished all of China's exploration, we just continue on down the path. There's just more chits available. There can be a little anomaly coming from that. Like if some people have pulled, if you know that people have pulled a lot of chits, maybe that that are high enough value to have given depletions or whatever, then you might actually want to aim for things where the high chits haven't been pulled and stuff like that. That's a level of gaming the system that I'm certainly not able to do right now, but again, like memorizing, it's probably easier than memorizing the chart for me, is to have a general feel for, what's the count on the chits, basically. The really exciting thing that happened during the exploration is way down on Japan. They actually got a couple of things. Their rover at Europa finished that and succeeded. Oh, I thought Venus was my second mission. Yeah. I have succeeded in the Venus mission as well. The rover got destroyed. But the Venus mission means we pick another mission, and that affects everyone. It's going to be Phobos, which should be on Mars now. Yeah, over here. So that should be, again, another one that people could pick up pretty easily. And we may see a rush towards that. Of course, Europe kept their cash, so they can throw that together. Otherwise. And I guess all we have left is the South Americans. And that gets us to the end of the turn. Nobody's set up to do anything to build a base or anything like that. Puts us to year 5. I think that's probably it for tonight. I'll work tomorrow. Terrible. And that'll get me the build and service phase there. So what have we got going so far? It's kind of hard to tell. It really is. The Russians have their base built, and they've got it set up, and we're going to see how effective that is. Other people have generated piles of technology for the most part. Some people have gotten some missions. I don't know how big a deal that is, how big a deal some of the other things are. If we look at the victory points, yeah, obviously the mission successes are victory points. But outside of that, technology is going to be important to getting us here towards those colonizer tracks. But it's also going to make it easier for us to move forward. So the idea of having a base out here, well, that may not be that potent when we look, hey, the Russians, yeah, they've got one good research already. They're not doing too terribly. But again, they start out with a stronger position than some of the other countries do. So, but they're not really doing much about their missions. They're trying to, but I don't see any Russians out here at Saturn, for example. Just hasn't been my focus, and now I don't have the cash for it. Obviously, we're not getting towards Alpha Centauri, but we're set up in a position with a base where we can start throwing some crappy settlements. They're the cheapest of all the settlements to make, but they're still worth a point for each level of settlement. Since we're building bases, we're getting victory points off the base pieces. And otherwise, it's really kind of hard to tell, I mean, it's like, yeah, you kind of go for the things that you have counters for, or that you have immediate capabilities for. And certain people have certain capabilities. Sort of the most disappointing to me right now is the North Americans. They start off with a lot of technological power, not a whole lot of money, and I just don't feel like they're doing all that well here. The technology that they're gaining this turn hasn't been very high. Now, they've got a decent pile of physics here, but I think Europe has a better pile. We can see they've got their engineering here and their biology there. So they're not that far behind other people in terms of where they're going to be growing. Obviously, though, they don't have one of these, and they don't have I don't know what one of those is. They don't have a mission that they completed yet, but their mission was far out. So unless they ended up with, and they had a fair shot at it, something like the Venus mission, they could have grabbed that. They don't have any cash left, so they won't be doing anything new for the rest of this decade. We're only halfway through, and they're done. They've wasted their money. Russia is pretty much done. They've wasted their money. Other players, well, China's pretty much wasted, but some of these other players have enough to launch a mission to go try to deal with Phobos. Some of them have flybys set up that can go there as well. So there's a certain degree of flexibility as to what you can do at this point. All right, let's send it up.